Hi, and welcome to another B2B R&D Blab. I am CEO of B2B R&D, Alan Williams, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
And I'm Craig Yaris, COO of B2B R&D. And
And,
today, I'm actually, captain of the enterprise today.
oh, Captain,
Yes,
awesome. And I'm,
yes.
I'm, I'm doing my best to emulate a popular research character. I thought it would be appropriate. I thought you might be science officer, but go with Captain. It's good.
I do have a blue one as well for science officer, but I went with captain. Uh, yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So for those of you who may not know, this is a character from NCIS, although I couldn't imagine anyone not knowing. This is not the way I look on a normal basis, although I might adopt it, so be careful.
I think it's very fitting.
Oh, great. Thank you. So this is the day before Halloween. It's the first Halloween at Blab, so we thought we would take advantage of it and have some fun.
Oh, wait,
We talk about
I can't dress like this all the time?
Oh, you're more than welcome to. Maybe this is just our blab, at
Okay,
least from now
good.
on. But so we thought we'd start with what's scary about digital marketing. So I have a few things, but what do you think is scary about digital marketing?
I think for some people, the whole field of digital marketing is scary. The fact that things are done so differently than they were 5, 6 years ago. The what do I come up with? What do I say? I think is one of the biggest things people are afraid of. What do they say on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn? What do they say in an email newsletter? What should their website say? I think that's one of the scariest things for a small business owner or any business owner, really.
Yeah, it's certainly depending on the industry. That some are more scared than others. Those that have criteria to meet and regulations to meet, accountants and financial advisors, they definitely have an edge of it's a scary
Yep.
place. I think what's scary about social media is that it's constantly changing. That you can develop a strategy, and it might not be a worthwhile strategy before you even get to play the whole thing out. So then it's, how far in advance do you create a strategy? Is it a 6 month strategy, and 2 months in, things you were going to do you can't do anymore, and things you never thought of everyone's doing? So I think digital marketing is a little scary from that perspective, that um, you almost can't predict your results, because halfway through your plan, you may have to change the way you're doing things.
Exactly. And that sort of parlays into something else that people find scary is how do I decide and judge, and what metrics do I use to say that it's working? Data is a big, scary thing for some people, and they don't know what they were going to measure, and they don't know what they should measure. So I think that's just as scary as their strategy all of a sudden changing.
Yeah, data can be scary. Data can definitely be scary. And what else is scary is how much data they have
That's
about
true.
us, right? We This seems to be a recurring theme, that we talk about the amount of automation and the amount of information that tons of organizations have about each one of us, and what they're going to do with it and how they're going to use it. And it is a little scary to know everywhere I go, someone is following me. In fact, I usually don't have my GPS on my phone, and I guess a while ago I turned it on, never turned it off. And I was at an event yesterday, and I was going through Facebook, and there was a little red dot that I had never seen before. And it was talking about other people being at the same location. And I thought, wow, that would be great. I didn't know they were here. I was at a very big event. So I started clicking on it, and it wasn't. It was just people I knew on Facebook that had used that location in some of their previous
Okay.
posts. So that took me a few minutes because now I'm looking around like they're not here. But it was a little scary that they were like, "Hey, you're where these people were. You want to hear more about it." So the amount of data that people are or companies are gathering can be scary.
See, I actually.
So we have a
Oh.
guest. Oh, and I don't see him anymore, but we did have someone join for a minute there.
I actually, when it comes to location, and we have talked a little bit about this in previous Blabs, I don't keep it on for certain applications. GPS is on for some while I'm using the app, but something like Facebook, I don't have it on for some reason. I don't want my location appended to every check-in. So I leave it off. Same with Twitter, I leave it off. But if you were, I use Foursquare and what is now Swarm. So I'll check into locations, but I want it to be my own doing. So I totally get that. And businesses looking at that data, now think about the data Google's providing now about busy times. That could be a scary thing for a company to look at that data and say, okay, what do I do with this now?
Yep. Hey, Charisse. Charisse has joined us, and I met her at an event that was earlier this week. So happy to have her jump on board. She said she would be here. Great to have her here. So we decided to start the conversation today with things that are scary about digital marketing. If you want to jump in and chat or ask a question about digital marketing or what you find scary, please do so. But definitely the data, I think it's scary on both sides. What do you do with it? And then how even if you're able to look at it and figure out, okay, here's what I think we should do with it, then you've got the flip side of how do I measure how well that's working? How do I know? That's another scary thing, right? Okay, I've got this strategy, social media and digital marketing hasn't gone haywire, so my strategy still works. But how do I know it's working? How do I have to prove this to someone? What kind of stuff is out there that can help us prove
and what are the metrics? Is it, we had a social campaign and we've got 10 more Facebook fans. Was that success? Who knows? Yeah.
Go for
now, I was going to say, you're absolutely right, Charisse, that analytics, for the novice entrepreneur are very scary. And it's scary on, as we talked a few minutes ago before you joined us, it's scary on many levels. There's so much data. I think business owners in general get overwhelmed. If they don't have a team of people analyzing this data, they get overwhelmed very quickly. And so they don't look at it.
Or at least, a couple good tools.
Yes.
I mean, there are definitely good tools out there on both sides of the coin, right? So there are tools out there that can help you create a campaign. And sort of help execute it. I mean, simple things like Hootsuite, that we've created the campaign, but that's the tool that's going to execute on it. And then there are other products like, Dasheroo that you pull things together and you can get sort of the analytics in one place. But to Charisse's point, building visibility, and then back, Craig, to what you were saying, what are the metrics? So the metrics go against the goal. So the metrics are relevant to the business and what they're trying to achieve.
Right.
And visibility is always a great goal for digital marketing, but eventually it's got to be more than just I got in front of some people. It's got to be I got in front of these people, and the next step to visibility is engagement.
Yes.
Right. So they commented, they retweeted, they whatever. Okay.
Yes. Sorry about that.
I'm okay, and what's your answer? I have no idea what that
was. My I have my iMessage linked to my computer. I'm on a Mac, and normally that is off, but yeah,
that was awesome.
That was loud. I apologize for that.
We're talking visibility and then engagement, and eventually, conversions. I was at an event earlier this week where I met Charisse, and they talked a lot about um, automation, and they talked a lot about the metrics, both before and after. What are you trying to achieve and how you're going to measure that, and then did you really achieve that? And so where does marketing and sales start to merge, right? And so I actually asked that question. I said, with all this marketing automation and the fact that the word conversion was thrown around a lot during that, it was a marketing summit, but conversion was thrown around a lot. I said, what's going to happen to the salespeople? And their answer was not what I agreed with, but that's fine. They all answered with, "Oh, this is going to help the salespeople because all this is going to gather the information, so they'll be better equipped to know what to say and who to say it to." And okay, so that's traditional CRM, right? And if you throw this other stuff on top of it, sure, there's even more. But I'm talking about the marketing automation with the touch points and emails that say, click here to buy, or social media that says click here to buy, or my website that says click here to buy. And if digital marketers really up their game and they've got all this data and they're targeting you on target, where's the salesperson? I buy from Amazon all the time. Amazon markets to me. I click a button. Macy's markets to me. I click a button. There are no salespeople.
No, you're absolutely right.
There aren't any. So marketers. I was at an event this morning where they said, well, marketers need to be more like salespeople, and salespeople need to be more like marketers, especially when you're talking about social media, because it's sort of that language that you're always marketing, and in some level you're always selling, even if it's not a hard sell. And that's scary to me. I don't want to be sold to all the time.
But in essence, we are being sold to all the time, and we just don't realize it. And I think that's good sales, is that we don't realize we're being sold to. And you mentioned before, where's the salesperson? I think I think we've talked about this, sort of a convergence between the sales team and the marketing team. And that data that they're gathering into, getting into that CRM, if they don't have people who know how to do the marketing part and the selling part together, that data will just sit there and go nowhere.
Yep. So Charisse is talking about the call to action, right? So call to action, and that's subtle. It can be blatant. There could be a big buy now button. Is my time's up now?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know you're gonna ding all day.
I don't know how to get rid of that.
It could be a big buy now button. But it could be a subtle, the message is visibility, the message is engaging, and then it could just be a nudge that's a call to action that says, learn more here, sign up for our newsletter. So there are a lot of calls to action that are available that aren't blatant sales. But I agree that, marketing drives that, the mentality, and I'm not judging, but the mentality of a salesperson is very different, I think, than a mentality of a marketer. I was at an event this morning, and the woman was talking about LinkedIn, and she did a great job, and she covered all aspects of it. And one guy was just like, I want to know about Sales Navigator. I want to know about prospecting. I want to know how to get my next client from LinkedIn. And yes, that's one thing you can do there, but that's not like instant. It needs to be, you need to market. I think everybody needs to market to get to the sale, unless you've got a great post, on Pinterest that says, buy this now.
And that was, and we discussed this briefly, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves with LinkedIn right now, is that I'll connect with people, and I guess through a search they found me, and they don't take the time and read your profile, and next thing you know, they're marketing to you. This is the service I provide. I am an attorney. I have a law degree. license to practice, whatever. But that's not what I do or who I am now. That was many moons ago. So he found me from that one part of my LinkedIn profile, sent me a LinkedIn message that said, hey, this is what I do. I am an attorney specialized, because we're in the same field, I'm an attorney that specializes in tax. Great. Doesn't...
Craig, you look just like an attorney today that specializes in tax.
Don't I though? I mean...
Absolutely.
If only he could see me now.
So it's, so there's the right way and the wrong way,
yes.
And to Sharice's point here on the side, it's about sharing your expertise, being
yes.
that, throw around some buzzwords, being that thought leader, getting your content where people look to you for information and then have a reason to connect.
Absolutely.
But there are those that, and we're back to the automation where they do the search, a bunch of people come up and they've got a process. It's almost like, the digital version of a cold call.
Right. It absolutely is. And
that's not marketing.
No.
And that's not good
sales. It's neither of those things. It's one of my biggest pet peeves, the cold calls. I remember when I was running a franchise company, you weren't getting to me. If I didn't know you, there was no way. No, period. It just wasn't happening. I'm not doing business with you because you picked up the phone and said, right. Hey, this is what I do. And right. Like Cherie said, she's had success using her expertise as a driver, but she's not, I'm assuming, she said, I don't use call to action on LinkedIn. Because she's just sharing, she's helping. It's the whole the idea that it's the 7 touches to build up that trust and do business. And that's what she's doing, I imagine.
Yep. I heard this morning 8 to 12 touches.
Really? So it's gotten worse.
Everybody has their own version of that.
This is true. This is true. Although I had always heard the 7 to 10 for years. So I'm going to stick with it because you get 8 to 12, it becomes even more daunting, I think, for some people.
Well, maybe it becomes more realistic. Sometimes you're out there, so you've got your digital marketing plan. Maybe you've even got your local marketing plan. So you're networking, you're going to expos, you're connecting on LinkedIn, you're connecting on other following, whatever. And you've got this steady stream of, you get an email every 2 weeks, and I see you on here, and I say, where's the business? And why isn't it working? Everyone else says social media works. Everyone else says, marketing calls to action work. And they do, but it's the expertise, it's the relationship. And if I know I'm going to be at an expo and I'm going to need to follow up pretty, consistently before they really do turn into a customer, then you have better metrics, right? And then you can have more realistic ROI anticipation. I'm going to this expo, maybe it is visibility, maybe it is, growing my list, but it may not be a sale happening right here today.
And with expos, you can certainly build that relationship before the expo even happens. Like you said, you start sharing that information. I'm going to this expo. Who's going to be there? Why don't we get together and talk? Why don't we have, there's that way to build up the relationship so that by the time of the expo and the first maybe face-to-face, you've now got 3, 4, 5 of those 10 touches, and there's the forming of a relationship, which I think people are either afraid to do or don't think about doing. It becomes all of the, trade show selling, and I think that becomes a problem. The average touch on LA is 5 to 7, according to Charisse.
Yeah. So the numbers are all over the place. So let's say, 5 to 15. and then it's all, we were talking earlier this week too about moments. And one of the event I went to, and this was interesting, the event I went to was a software that had huge amount of demographic data, could suggest, almost predictively suggest the best places to advertise based on the behavior of your database. Um, and they were talking about creating moments, like marketing in the moment. But they weren't talking about the moment like Google talks about the moment that I'm having, a moment. This moment is occurring and you want to be there at that moment. They were talking about creating moments. And I thought that was really interesting from a different perspective. How, as a marketer, do I quote unquote create a moment? And I guess the first thing that comes to my head is YouTube had the live stream of NFL.
Mm-hmm.
They they created they I guess they tapped into a moment and created one at the same time. So they knew where millions of people would be watching football,
Mm-hmm.
and they from a marketing perspective created that moment on YouTube. So I liked the concept of moments have both sides. Like I can create a moment, or I can try to tap into your moment as a marketer.
And do you think for businesses large and small, how do they know how to create these moments? Tapping into the moment, I think would be a little bit easier because you've got that historical data you can use, timing, date, activities, what's going on in the world. But to create one seems much more difficult because it would seem you'd need that big audience to begin with. The NFL's a big audience.
Yeah.
So I think for most businesses, it may be difficult to create that single moment in time, if you will, to actually connect with an audience.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it was the first time I had heard
Mm-hmm.
that whole moment concept from a slightly different perspective, that they weren't necessarily tapping into the moments that the audience was having. They were, creating their marketing moments, I suppose, from a database of an expected
Sure.
moment versus the simple moments that Google's talking about, which is I go for we decide to go for a drive, and we're 100 miles away from home and hungry, but we don't know the area. So at that moment I'm needing something. Was that predictable? No.
Right.
But if I need that at that moment, and you can, be there at that moment that I'm having, that's really what most of the conversation has been about.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, and I have not seen, although I've seen viewer numbers for the Yahoo live stream, and they've been running the gamut from 15 million to 44 million. Um, so I'm curious to see some data on the advertisers during those moments and what they've found successful, not successful, was it worthwhile? I'm very interested in that. Haven't seen it yet. I imagine if it's negative, it won't be available rather quickly. Positive probably will be, in my mind.
Yeah, I just did a quick search on the YouTube NFL live stream, and there's nothing like today. There's nothing even this week.
No,
There's there's a little bit of talk about the fact that it was happening, but very interesting.
there's been very
There's
little.
been much less follow up than expected.
It leads me to believe, well, I did see an article on Monday or Tuesday that there were some discrepancies in number reporting. So
Ah,
that could be why there's silence on that end. That Yahoo was reporting at 1.44 million, but it may have been more like 15 million people participating.
okay. So that's scary, right? When the numbers are off, who do you believe? And you start talking about um, the strength of a strategy. If you're not really getting the numbers the way they need to be presented, and that's another thing about digital marketing and ROI is how do you do the attribution? How do you know which one of those things actually caused the conversion, or at
Yes.
least the sometimes your website is part of the whole conversion thing, but if you've got a strategy out there and you're doing multiple things, the omni-channel strategy, let's throw every buzzword we know into
Ah,
that, right? And so and everyone
sure.
should be. There is no one size fits all.
Right.
There's no, this is not for me, I'm only going to do that. I mean, Sharice and I have spoken. She's talking about LinkedIn today, but we talked a lot about Instagram when we met. So if I'm doing all these things, which one is working is well, they all must be working. Or attribution is another whole big conversation. Last touch, first
Yeah.
touch, multiple touch. And that can get scary. You might have an amazing Instagram account, but people are finding you because they went to LinkedIn.
Hmm.
They conversed with you over at LinkedIn, and they found that, oh, I found the same person over at Instagram. Wow, this is really cool. It's a whole different conversation. And now the conversion happens through Instagram, but they would never have found you there had they not had the more professional kind of conversation with you on LinkedIn.
You're absolutely right. And that's we talked about scary when we started and how scary data can be. That's the kind of big data that many companies, size, it doesn't matter, are afraid to look into or don't know how to. They don't know how to set up their attribution through Google Analytics. They don't know how to gauge timing and when people manage to make that conversion. Um, it's a big question, the whole attribution. And I question how important it is overall, whether they came through, and I'm sort of I understand the, needing to know if this platform works more than this platform. Totally understand that, and I see the need for it. But for a company, large or small, they're looking at the quote unquote conversion, the final purchase, the dollars. And
Right.
are they taking the time to really look at it and say, well, they got to me through Facebook, but I know that they've had 5 other touches.
Right.
Are they analyzing, and do they need to? I don't know.
I think they need to.
Okay.
Um,
I'm probably
Now,
agreeing, but
depending on the size of the company, you're talking about, in some cases, time, not money, right? Because a lot of, if you're just doing pure social media, email marketing isn't necessarily expensive either. So we'll say money is not really a factor here,
okay.
but time is. And for small businesses, time is
Yes.
money. If you go a larger organization, they're not relying just on posts and things like that. They're doing sponsored posts, they're doing advertising. And so if you think, ad A is converting high, but you don't realize that it's, ad B that's really more people are seeing, and so they get your brand there even though they don't take action. And then when they see ad A, they remember, and then they take action. You may misallocate your budget the next quarter. Oh, we'll go more with ad A,
That's
pulling
true.
back on ad B. Then all of a sudden you're not getting the results you expected. I don't think any, and this was a lot of that conversation this earlier at this conference. The siloed stuff doesn't work.
Absolutely.
Sales and marketing being siloed doesn't work, but a siloed marketing plan doesn't work either. You have to understand, here's another one, the customer experience, right? You have to understand the customer journey. And as much as you try to make it great, you need to understand the impact that each step makes. If they'll never get to conversion if
Yes,
they
I
don't
do.
have a great experience with step number 2. So we have to make sure step number 2 has always the right budget, because number 1 is okay and number 3 is okay, but 4 and 5 are absolutely imperative. And I think if you're not looking at the whole picture, you're, and I think with the bigger organizations, the fight, the bottom line comes into play.
Sure.
So yeah, we got the conversion, but how do we make that better? And if we put the money in the wrong
Right.
aspect of the marketing, it's not going to come, it's not going to be any better.
So for the smaller companies, how do they, like Charisse had said at the event you had gone to, how many entrepreneurs understand attribution when using all of the platforms? And so the entrepreneurs, and I'm going to lump them with the small businesses, even if they understand the idea of attribution, are they able to discern the data? Are they able to access the data? Do they know how to even find this information? I think that's the even bigger question, is if they understand it, how do they find it? What do they do? The larger companies, and Charisse had made a comment before about the CMO suite, the metrics belonging to the CMO. And I don't 100% agree, but I don't disagree, because I do think marketers should be on top of metrics. She had put metrics towards the the marketers really being about the call to action. And I think both of those go hand in hand. So how do they get the data? Are they afraid to? It's spooky Halloween. Are they afraid to look at the data because they don't know how? I wish I had the answer to that.
I would suspect that any business that's really contemplating and having conversations around attribution, and they've gotten to the point of understanding that this is something they need to be looking at, my best guess would be that they've started that
Okay.
process. Because at the very least, okay, so here's the minimal, is the likes and the follows. And so there's all of a sudden there is a metric. And if I got 10 new followers and we got 2 new clients, we've got attribution. Oh, let's start to look at that. How do we look at that? So you're right. They may not necessarily know how. They may not necessarily understand when they get there. I mean, I've seen Google Analytics for longer than I want to say. But when I first started looking at it, it was like raw data. And you really had to, like, it came in a spreadsheet and you had to sort it. And it was like, okay, what does this mean? And then recently, we sent the press release out about our business this week, and, we got a new customer. And so I directly attribute the press release to the customer, but I don't know necessarily where they read it, so which channel was the right channel that drove that,
Right.
so where did it start and where did it end? And I think once you understand that these are important pieces of information that a business owner needs, you start like anything else, any good data, you start at the end. What do I want to know? And then you work backwards to, what do I need to do in the beginning in order to
Know that.
make sure I have that information at the end? Yeah.
And I agree, Charisse, that marketers aren't analysts, but I do think, coming from that, running an agency for several years before B2B, analyzing was my job. The clients look to you to say, okay, we did this, now what? What did it mean? Here's like Ellen said, Google Analytics is much prettier now. And it's not just the hard, raw spreadsheet data, but you still have to sit and say, okay, this is what the data means. This is what it means if somebody came to you from Facebook and went to these 3 pages and then did this and then left, but we can see that a similar, audience member came and did this. And it is our responsibility, I think, as marketers to be able to have that knowledge, that expertise. And I think it may even be important for the sales team to have that information, that knowledge, that expertise, to know that if somebody is now a new piece of data in your CRM, how'd they get there? Talk about attribution of your data, your CRM. How'd they get to the CRM? How'd they fill out that form to be added? So I think attribution covers many parts of our business.
But I think digital marketing, as much as it changes all the time, is also changing the required skill set of of a good
Yes.
marketer.
Yes.
You know, so I agree. There's got to be a level of analysis, right? It should be pretty simple. It should be a product that gives me a graph that shows me this is what happened yesterday, this was what happened today. It got better, it got worse. You know, I don't have to be necessarily an analyst, right? But I need to be able to look at the data and say, okay, well, how does this modify my strategy? But I can't be afraid of data in general.
Right.
I think marketers, you know, historically are creative people. And, you know, salespeople can be creative people too, but they're a different breed, right? And they do understand quotas and numbers, and that's what drives them. And that's not what's driven marketers in the past, but with the sort of combining of the marketing sales and digital and data and analysis and video, right? And all of a sudden now we have to be camera ready and you know, take on different personas. You know, there's so
It's
much
true.
to being a marketer today. It's not what it was.
No, you're absolutely right.
You can't hide behind your content anymore because you are your content. And even if you're not visual, you know, even if it's not a video, you have to come through with authenticity and sincerity and believability, right? Because there's you're building your
Yep.
trust. So I think just digital marketing has not only changed the landscape and continues to do so, it's changing what it means to be a marketer and what you need to understand in order to be a marketer.
Yeah, as you were talking about all of the ways that things have changed, it sort of stirred a memory of when I was working with an agency, God, 10 years ago now, maybe a little bit more at the franchise I was with, and the agency would come in and say, okay, here's the layout for the ad we're going to do in this periodical, which has this potential reach. And we run the ad, whatever the contract was, and they would come back and say, so did it work? It was our job as the client to say, well, we got X number of, you know, return on coupons or whatever phone calls. It was our job to tell them as the client, tell the agency if it worked or not. They didn't bring anything. It was, hey, you know, this could work because of its reach and its potential demographic. Nothing more. Now the marketer has to come back and say, okay, we can see we ran this ad to sell X, and I see on your Google Analytics that you had 32 purchases of X attributed to this ad. So you earned this much money, you cost you this, and I know that information as the marketer. So I can go to them and say, it worked.
Right.
It's so different. The onus is so much more on the marketers and the marketing agencies and the in-house marketers to really prove the worth of everything they do.
Because they can see.
Yes.
Like you said. I mean, even something as simple as creating a bit.ly or, you know, or a separate landing page
Sure.
or something unique that campaign A gets this link, campaign B gets that link, and a week from now, I may not be able to see your actual sales, but I can see the traffic, you know, and then maybe, you know, there is a way to dig down, like you said, or maybe there's a coupon code that if I just look at the data and I don't see the financials because I'm in the marketing, but I see how many times that coupon code has been used.
Sure.
Yeah, all of that is, I don't want to say it's public information because it's not, but it's certainly shared information in a way that was just not available,
Right.
you know, but prior. Yeah.
Yep. I remember.
We're gonna say goodbye to Charisse.
Oh, bye,
Glad you
Sharice.
stopped by, and hopefully you'll catch the one next week. I don't know. Oh God, are you kidding?
I had to. Live long and prosper, Sharice.
You know that Captain doesn't say that.
Well, actually, technically, Captain Spock does say it. Spock was a captain, technically.
Oh good technicality.
So there you go. Although two totally different generations, but
How long was he a captain?
um, at least throughout all of their movies, I believe he was a captain, possibly somewhere before he took over as first officer on the Enterprise. Yeah. I'll have to pull out my Star Trek encyclopedia. Don't know where it is. It's actually still packed.
From a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. So from a digital marketing standpoint, what else is scary? We've got data, we've got content, we've got changes, we've got analytics.
I think somebody once said to me they were afraid to just get started. They were afraid to screw up, to say something and offend somebody and just totally ruin their entire business. So I think the whole idea of being authentic, you used that word earlier, the whole idea of being authentic scares people. You know, I'm a company, I'm not a person. They don't realize that we do business with people that we know, like, and trust. We're going to throw in as many marketing words and phrases as we can in this one.
Awesome.
So they're doing business that way. You know, we want to see that personal interaction. I have a friend who is an attorney. I don't know what kind of law she practices, a lot of debt consolidation or whatever. And they take in service animals to train. And they do a lot of posting of the pictures of the training of the service animals on their business page that goes out in their newsletter. And it's that, you know, connection with people that helps. And I think companies and people, entrepreneurs, they're all afraid to be themselves nowadays, regardless of the fact that we are who we are. And if I don't like you, if I like you, it doesn't matter that you shared a picture of your kid on your business page by accident. It's not going to stop me from wanting to do business with you. It just, I don't think it is.
Mishaps, you know, as long as they're, I think you're right, as long as they're not offensive, and certainly in a business atmosphere, if I'm, you know, on social media representing my brand, you know, there is that element of, I need to be cognizant that I'm not necessarily being a person.
Right.
I'm being a person representing the brand. And so maybe a little definitive about things your brand can do, but maybe a little less definitive about opinionated things.
Absolutely.
So there isn't. But this morning at the event, someone was, you know, the presenter was talking about LinkedIn, and there was something that she said people were afraid of. She said that everyone in your organization, all your employees, their LinkedIn profiles should look great, because it's not just you, regardless of who you are in your organization. If someone meets you, they're going to look at yours, but they're also going to look at the company.
Yeah.
And then they may search for other people in that company and maybe go look at their profiles too. And if not everyone in your organization has a good looking profile, people could make judgments on that.
Sure.
Now, the scary thing is people are afraid to have their employees look great on LinkedIn, because there are a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn. And, you know, they're afraid that the recruiters are going to go, wow, this person looks great, and that their employees are going to be recruited. And she had the perfect comeback. She said, you're not losing employees because they're being recruited on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not the reason you lose an employee.
That's a great point.
I mean, I was with Constant Contact for 4 years, and I got definitely a handful of emails through LinkedIn, and answered them all the same way. You know, thank you very much. I'm flattered. I'm not in the market for a job. I like my job, but thanks anyway. So, and it was interesting, you know, to me, it was definitely, oh, that's cool. Someone sees what I'm doing and finds it valuable too. But I felt that from the company I was working for, that I felt valuable to them. And so being on LinkedIn was not the reason that I was going to leave Constant Contact. I left Constant Contact because I saw an opportunity in the market and wanted to, dive in and start a business that could do something different than what Constant Contact was doing. And so it was a very internal decision.
That's such a great point.
Yeah. The fear of being, taken away, but the fear of losing a customer. People put their LinkedIn network as private,
right?
Because they don't want their competitors taking their customers. So
can't.
I say the same thing.
Yes.
LinkedIn isn't the reason your customers are leaving.
That's such a great point, and I've heard that several times. Well, if I'm on Facebook and people like me, my competitors will see who's liked me and they can target their marketing to them. And the answer is yes, they can. But to your point, you are 1,000% correct. They're not going to leave if you're meeting their needs. They're just not. And you're absolutely right. You can market to me all you want. If Google were to start a massive marketing campaign to me to buy an Android phone, they can't get me to do that. I'm very happy with my iPhone. I'm not going to go buy an Android phone because I'm very happy. When I stop being happy, that's when you jump ship. And so it's a great point. It flows through all of social media, all of marketing. Yeah. It really does. I thought you were actually, I had in my head where you were going with that, and it wasn't there at all. So I'm really happy about that, because that was a great point. I thought you were just going to go with the usual, I don't want my picture out there because people will see what I look like. So I'm afraid to have a picture on LinkedIn because I'm older, I'm a woman, I'm younger, I'm whatever. And so,
She had a story about that too. She said there was a woman that she was meeting on the phone, right? So they were finally gotten to the point of a quote unquote meeting. And she said to her, your profile is terrific. You have such extensive experience and a great background. She goes, but your picture, you're so young. And the woman says to her, well, let me tell you a secret. The picture is 25 years old.
Yeah, see.
And she was like, okay, unless you still look like that, when people meet you in person and you don't resemble your picture, it's now all of a sudden there's a question of trust, so everything you've built up now, it won't necessarily go away, because if we're talking about, a personal picture, it's maybe there's a little vanity, but still it's the way in which you conduct yourself. And this is a whole different conversation. And how much can you separate that from the way you conduct yourself in business? Mm-hmm. Me as a person in my personal life, I have certain morals and standards. I'm not lowering them when I become my business person, and vice versa. If I have high business standards, when you chat with me as a person, I'm going to have that same level. So if you're vain or you are willing to be deceptive on any level, then it's there. Mm-hmm. It's there at some level everywhere you go. When I used to speak, a lot of people would say, "Oh, you look just like your picture," and it would make me laugh because, well, that one was taken about 3 weeks ago at another event. So yeah, I look just like that.
I actually, for a long time, I had a picture on LinkedIn of me in not my uniform, in a beige blazer and a blue shirt, and I would find that I would wear that at a lot of events, and I would have a picture, I would be like, yeah, that's me, same outfit, because it does have that, it bridges the trust. If I meet you and it's not a question of age, it's a question of deception. Yes. I expected you to be something different, and you lied to me. And I know it's rough. That's a tough thing to say to somebody. But It's true. We built up a relationship and you lied.
Right. And you're not going to say it. but you're going to feel it.
I'm thinking it.
And even if you don't think it, I was just going to say that, even if you can't put your finger on what's not quite right,
Yeah.
you're going to feel it. And how many times have you heard, okay, let's go for another one. It's, people remember you because of the way you make them feel, not because of the things you say.
Oh, this is great.
So if you're eliciting an emotion,
yes,
great. You want to do that, but not
negative.
The wrong one, right?
Right. Yeah, and you're going to second guess, I think, a lot of what comes out of that person's mouth. Well, did you really graduate from that school? Did you really have that person? I'm all of a sudden second guessing, and you said it may not affect the long term. In my mind, it very well may. It very well may.
It may or may not.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you're talking about, we could joke about it. It was the best picture I've ever had taken in my life. I use it everywhere, and there's a way around.
Sure.
Some of that, but yeah, other people, perception is reality.
Yes.
Right, and some things people are willing to go okay, and other things people just never get over, and you may never know why you lost that client, and how many people, back to attribution, how many people are going to attribute losing a client because of the picture you have on LinkedIn?
Right. And that's actually easily, in my mind, solved, because your summary is really an opportunity for you to get a little bit personal, tell your story. And you could start that with, yes, my picture was taken 20 years ago. You could even have the actual profile picture in your summary, because you can do that. And tell a story about why you're using that older picture. There's no longer a question of deception. You were
great. That would have been perfect for this woman, because there was that, wow, look at all your experience, but you look so young.
Right.
And bravo if you really do in person look that young,
Sure.
That's awesome. But that's a really interesting idea in the summary area, to be very transparent and say, this, yes, my favorite picture ever. This was the best day of my life, or whatever it is. And we and somehow wrap it around to the message of your business. That's a really good idea.
Absolutely. And now you've combat the whole deception idea, and you've opened up an area for conversation, for connection, for a deeper involvement with potential relationships. So and people don't realize they have that ability within LinkedIn to sort of be a little bit more personable in the summary. I always tell people, that's your story. That's not the resume. That's your story. What got you from point A to point B? What brought you from an attorney to a marketer? It's your story. Yeah. And I think that would be the place to cover that whole deception idea, because that's one of my big concerns, is people not understanding who they really are. And it sort of can stop them from doing business with them. And social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, it allows us to be a little bit more authentic. And
anonymous.
Well,
in some cases.
In some cases, yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. But if the people are anonymous, they're not our potential client maybe, and they're not ones we're doing business with. So be anonymous all day. It's that look, we are sitting here dressed up for Halloween.
That's true. This is everyone's first version of us.
If somebody finds this video first, and it could make or break a relationship. In my mind, look, we are fun people. We are who we are. I do aspire.
We're someone else today.
Right, we are who we are, someone else. I do aspire to be captain of the Enterprise. I have to tell you, if I didn't tell you that before, and that is a problem, if Starfleet calls, I'm out.
Hey, if I ever get a call from Gibbs, that's the last you're seeing of me.
Exactly. So, you know, that we have that. And I think it's that personality and that ability for people to be who they are that makes these tools so much fun and gives us as marketers so much data to work with. Because I know you like this, this, and this.
Right.
I can appeal to that.
Yeah. And so it should be fun and not scary. Right? We
Absolutely.
chatted a lot, being the day before Halloween, we've chatted a lot today about what's scary. But in the end, you know, we could have gone the ghost, ghoul, witch, you know, scary version, and we didn't. We went the fun version, the geek version,
Right.
you know, all those, you know, that all that is digital marketing. And it can be overwhelming and it can be complex. But it can be simplified if you stick to the core values and you understand your audience. Now, that in itself can be a little complicated, but once you really, really do understand your audience, I think there's a level of simplicity and certainly a certain amount of fun that the majority of businesses out there can have.
I completely agree. And really, the data you're talking about, who their audience is not the complex data, really. It's not that complex. They have an idea. You know, you and I sat and did a persona conversation. All businesses, I think, have that idea, and they can use, you know, the analytics on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest to really narrow it down. It's not scary. And I think that's the parting thought is this stuff isn't scary. It really should be fun because it's helping you further your business, which should be something you enjoy doing.
There you go. Digital marketing is not scary.
Nope.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first. Second. I don't know who said it first.
You said it first.
I said it first? All right. You heard it here first. The captain of the Enterprise has spoken.
There you go. And
make it so.
We're at the okay, we're at the top of the hour. I'm turning the recording off. Any other comments? Any other jargon? Anyone to fit in this? Let's make sure we think out of the box and be disruptive.
we have to think out of the box. We have to be, what's that? I can't remember the phrase. You sort of started it and I can't remember it. I don't know.
Be innovative. Go out and conquer, right?
Live long and prosper.
There you go. So we'll see you hopefully next week.
We'll see you next time.
It's a little different.
Maybe.